Welcome to the deep dive. You sent us some really interesting material this time.
Yeah, personal reflections, right?
Yep,
On the band Zero and the guitarist Steve Kimek.
exactly. All drawn from this piece. Steve Kimek and Zero, nothing to see here.
And the idea, as we understand it, is you want to get to the heart of this pretty quickly, but, thoroughly. Get those aha moments.
That's the goal. A real understanding of the music, the impact.
Okay, well, this text, it's definitely a deep dive from a fan's perspective. A real appreciation for Zero, for Kimek. It's packed with stories, some history, and these, really personal takes on live shows.
So our mission is to kind of pull out the essence of that. What makes this music tick for the author and maybe why it resonates more broadly?
Precisely. Let's unpack it.
Okay, so the author kicks things off by putting us right there, arriving early at a show. I totally get that
Well,
feel.
yeah, the pre-show
The
ritual.
anticipation, checking out the stage, the guitars, the amps, trying to spot a set list maybe.
Uh-huh. It's all part of it. And the author mentions these, specific West Coast touches.
Right, like crystals or natural stuff on the mics.
Yeah. And communal blankets in the crowd. It paints a picture of a certain kind of scene, a
A
vibe.
real connection, it seems,
Now,
between the band, the audience, the place itself.
definitely. And it feels like a tight-knit community, too. The author talks about feeling connected to other serious fans.
Not just casual listeners.
No, like the archivists, the tapers,
Mm.
Dr. Bob, Charlie Miller are mentioned. Photographers, too, Bob Minkin, Susan Wayland.
Capturing the moments. And that connection to Grateful Dead history through Rudson, Kimmock's stage manager, Ramrod's son.
Yeah, that's wild, isn't it? It just shows how intertwined these musical worlds really are, that lineage.
It points to why people get so dedicated, I think, especially with this kind of music, the live improv stuff.
It's more than just listening. It's being part of something, a shared thing.
Okay, so then it goes deeper. The author connects it to Kerouac and jazz.
Right, this idea of improv music as, a path to something higher, a different state of consciousness.
Wow. And they quote Kerouac, the mad ones.
Yeah, that passage.
Yeah.
To capture that, intense passion for the whole experience, being mad to live.
That resonates, that feeling of just wanting to soak it all in, surrender to the music.
Totally. And the author calls the show a transmission.
Yeah.
The musicians, spiritual teachers. It's that level of engagement.
That internal buzz before a show, but trying to stay calm on the outside.
Exactly, that wild excitement below a calm exterior and wanting those rare, transcendent moments.
But also balancing it with Buddhism, equanimity.
Yeah, this idea of accepting whatever the music brings, which
Yeah.
is pretty insightful for a dedicated fan, right? Wanting the magic, but being okay if it's just, well, a good show.
It's about the journey, not just the destination, maybe.
Kind of. And the post-show rituals add to that picture, scribbling poems, set lists.
Keeping notebooks, collecting posters, it's way beyond casual listening. It's living with it.
So what was it about Zero, specifically? The author only saw them, what, 13 times? Including a recent one.
Yeah, November 2024, and one in Felton, California. Sounds like those shows really packed a punch.
They must have. The author says Zero's music, the musicians, have had this huge impact over 25 years.
And it all traces back to July 1st, 1998, a Great Woods show outside Boston, but it wasn't even Zero.
No, it was the other ones, that post-Garcia band with former Dead members. That was the first time the author heard Steve Kimek play.
And since then, seen Kimek like 130 times in 13 states. Wow.
That's serious dedication. And the way that the author describes it, this awakening to Kimek and Zero, it wasn't instant.
It was tied into coming back from Thailand and the whole jam band scene rising up after Jerry died.
Exactly. And Kimek was right in the middle of that with the other ones.
It's interesting, though, that the author missed the peak of that scene while living abroad.
Right, but they don't frame it just as regret. It's seen as, personal growth, finding direction.
Referencing Hesse's Siddhartha.
Yeah, and feeling aligned with the beats. Like that time away fueled their own writing, Songs from Exile.
Like Hunter or Corso sometimes stepped away to create.
Kind of that idea. So the anticipation for that first Other Ones show becomes really significant.
Mm-hmm.
A return, a new creative spark.
Okay, but for listeners maybe not steeped in this, who is Steve Kimek? The author admits they didn't know him initially, even as a Deadhead.
Right, especially compared to folks in the Bay Area where you'd think a Deadhead would know him.
All those missed chances to see him, or Zero in the 90s on the West Coast.
It shows how you can be in a scene but still miss key players, depending on where you are or when you tuned in.
But that lack of early awareness clearly fueled later passion, flying around the country.
And regretting missing early Baltimore shows.
Mm-hmm.
And then there's that Garcia connection.
The July '88 Dead Show anecdote, and Garcia playing with Zero way earlier at a No Nukes rally.
Yeah, hinting at some early overlap. And then, of course, the big one, Garcia calling Kimmock one of my favorite unknown guitarists.
That's massive praise. Puts him in a unique spot, right? Highly regarded by a legend, but still kind of under the radar for many.
Absolutely. Which leads to the author's initial skepticism about him replacing Jerry and the other ones.
Hearing rumors about Santana maybe doing it.
Yeah. Imagine the pressure on Kimmock, Garcia's, quote, the critical Deadhead fan base.
And that note about him sometimes sitting down, a different vibe from Garcia.
A subtle contrast.
Yeah.
So while the author was just discovering Kimmock in '98, Zero itself had this whole history.
They were just jamming. They had songs. Originals like Golden Road, Severe Tire Damage.
And covers, yeah, Little Wing, Mercury Blues, and the musicians who played in Zero over time.
Yeah.
It's staggering.
Seriously. John Cipollina, Banana, John Kahn, Martin Fierro.
Nicky Hopkins, Vince Welnick, Merle Saunders, Bobby Vega. Just, wow.
It really shows Zero wasn't just some side project. It was a hub for amazing talent in the Bay Area.
A vital band.
Yeah.
And then the Robert Hunter connection in the early '90s, collaborating with Greg Anton, Zero's drummer.
Resulting in albums like Chance in a Million. That's huge. Hunter, the guy who wrote lyrics for Truckin', Ripple.
Countless Dead classics. The fact that he chose to work with Zero.
Even though they weren't widely famous.
It says a lot about the music they were making, that specific connection.
Which brings us to, what's Zero up to now? The author mentions those last shows, November 2024 at the Mystic Theater.
Right, correcting from an earlier date mentioned. And there's a sense of sadness, worry about Greg Anton, their inactivity.
That feeling fans get, hoping it's not over.
Yeah, the author hopes they're just sleeping, that the spark's still there as long as Greg and Steve are around.
Their history goes way back, right? Late 70s.
Yeah, with Keith and Donna Gaucho and the Heart of Gold Band. And Zero started around '84, mostly instrumental at first. That's a long partnership.
And Zero really clicked in certain places. Northern California.
Those hippie enclaves, yeah. Makes sense with the Dead connection.
Did they even want mainstream fame, though? The name Zero, album titles like Here Goes Nothing.
Right. It suggests a comfort with being maybe a bit under the radar, but...
But their publicist was Dennis McNally, the Dead's publicist,
Huh.
and Kerouac biographer.
Exactly. That kind of muddies the waters. Suggests maybe some desire for wider recognition, at least within that counterculture world.
The author ran into McNally at a Zero show in 2022.
Yeah, reminiscing about the Chance in a Million reunion shows back in 2006, and Kimmock's funny announcement, quoting Cipollina before those shows.
Wasn't that personal touch, the history?
And the author regrets not telling McNally about the encore from that reunion.
The Layla Coda on steel guitar, wow.
Yeah, it highlights how those unexpected moments stick with you. And Zero's ability to shift emotions so drastically within a song, which is classic Kimmock too.
Then there was that surprise Zero reunion in Denver, March 2006.
Right after the author moved there, with Donna Jean Godchaux showing up despite a snowstorm.
And they played an instrumental Stella Blue. Unexpected.
Clearly a big deal for the author, seeing Donna Jean live, her history with Elvis the Dead. It added to Zero's, credibility or bona fides, as the author puts it.
And connects back to Judge Murphy singing Hunter's lyrics for Chance in a Million, that collaborative spirit.
And it was Hunter, remember, who suggested Zero get a vocalist in the first place, after meeting Greg Anton.
Huge. A legend like Hunter seeing that potential.
And Hunter saw them live in '86 with Cipollina on second guitar and immediately got what they were about.
Cipollina's legacy. And Kimmock naming his son John Morgan Kimmock after him.
Yeah, JMK, who's a great musician himself, played drums with Mike Gordon.
So he grew up literally surrounded by Zero's music.
Totally. And Judge Murphy became the main singer from '91 until he passed in 2013.
The story of him getting the gig just by singing Catalina, amazing.
It is. And the author clearly still feels that loss. How Judge sang certain songs like Ermeline, Horses, irreplaceable.
Catalina maybe could have been a breakthrough hit, but didn't quite happen.
Seems that way. And then Kimmock joining the other ones in '98 definitely slowed Zero's momentum, less touring.
That makes sense. It led to other projects, though, right? Like KVHW.
Yep, and Kimmock playing with Phil Lesh and friends for a bit, until that kind of abrupt departure from the tour in '99.
Yeah, the author mentioned that. Sounded a bit mysterious.
It did, and apparently Kimmock and Lesh haven't played together since then, which, suggests something happened there.
Musical partnerships can be complicated.
For sure. But then, thankfully for the fans, the Steve Kimmock Band, SKB, formed in 2001.
A new main outlet for his music.
Right. And for the author, moving back stateside meant more chances to see him with SKB, SKF, Steve Kimok family.
Which brings us right back to that first Other Ones show, July 1st, 98, Great Woods.
The big awakening moment. Hornsby was there. They played the other one. But it was Kimok on Wharfrat.
That's what hooked the author, those descriptions of his sound. Pay waves, the honeybee in a tin mailbox.
Trying to capture something unique. Yeah, familiar Dead song, but transform, reinvigorated.
And then seeing them again in Hartford cemented it. Just transcendent Grateful Dead music.
Leading to that immediate need for more Kimok. Trying to find KVHW.
Even though info was scarce then.
Yep.
And seeing them once at Wetlands in NYC, but not quite clicking with the fusion sound at that time.
Right. Missing a point of no return. And then missing the Phil Dillon tour because Kimok left. Those near misses again.
Ah, the life of a fan. But then discovering the Live Zero album, Nothing Lasts Forever.
Yeah, that opening track, Cole's Law. Martin Fierro's sax. Slow burn.
And Forever Is Nowhere, the slide guitar track, sounding otherworldly.
And the author admits being initially hesitant about sax in jam music.
But Fierro changed their mind, especially on Home on the Range.
Completely. It shows how one player can open your ears. And the author connects it back to sax in the Dead's world, like on Wake of the Flood.
Branford Marsalis, David Murray later.
Right, and the Dead's own roots in jazz appreciation, Kerouac, Neil Cassidy, it all connects.
So finally seeing SKB live, Great American Music Hall, December 2001.
By then, the author knew the music better. Recognized originals, covers, even KVHW tunes being played. Must have been intense hearing so much new stuff live.
And that trip to Mill Valley, Fairfax with their dad, soaking in the history.
Yeah, Ginsberg, Kerouac, Kesey's acid tests, the Dead, that whole Marin County creative energy, and the venues, Sweetwater, the JMH itself.
Where One from the Vault was recorded.
Exactly. History everywhere.
And seeing Fierro and Pete Sears just hanging out in the crowd at GAMH before playing.
That's the kind of thing that sticks with you as a fan, that intimacy. And Pete Sears, his history with Jefferson Starship, his role in Zero, writing parts of Forever Is Nowhere, adds another layer.
And that description someone gave the author, Greg and Steve as Alpha and Omega, Martin Fierro as the spirit of Zero.
That captures it well, doesn't it? Martin the prankster, the MC, but also this incredible musician, his playing on Wake of the Flood with Garcia solo.
Integral to Zero too. On Golden Road, Cole's Law into Tangled Hangers, complementing Kimok's style.
While Kimok is Garcia's favorite unknown guitarist, it all fits.
The author shares specific Martin moments too. New Year's runs, that Mystic show in 2005.
April 13th, yeah, with a mini Zero set listing the songs, and a young Julian Lage sitting in.
Wow. And hearing Afro Blue for the first time at a later Mystic show, these specific memories.
And the Fillmore All Request show, that's pretty cool.
Letting fans pick the set. The author requested almost everything they played.
Yeah, and describes the playing as stratospheric. Then the encore in Petaluma, No Woman, No Cry. Special nights.
Then there's that really intimate show, Jenner Playhouse 2003, Martin Fierro sitting right behind the author.
Crazy. And Steve's son, JMK, just 14 then, playing drums with precision.
Yeah.
Clearly grew up with it.
And a spellbinding Stella Blue. The author feels only the Dead Garcia and Kimok Zero can really do that song.
That's a strong statement. It shows the depth of that connection.
Leading to that incredibly personal wish, an instrumental Kimok Stella Blue at their memorial.
Wow, yeah, that says it all about the music's meaning for them, the culmination of the journey.
So wrapping this up, we land on this image from the epilogue, this imaginary day in West Marin.
Near Lagunitas, hearing Zero sounds from a barn on a ranch.
Yeah, you can picture it. Cattle grazing, horses, mist, and that music floating out.
Judge singing Home on the Range, Martin's sax. Robert Hunter watching, smiling, tapping his foot.
It's this beautiful picture of creativity, just enduring, happening. Even in quiet corners.
A real sense of the power of this one band, this one guitarist, to shape a life so profoundly.
And even after this deep dive, you get the sense there's always more, right? More layers in the music, more stories.
Absolutely. Always more to explore. Thanks for digging in with us today.